Welcome to Rotary Talks 2021, live with Rotary Toy, and tonight's guest is Tanya Bothma, which we'll hear in a few moments' time. Just to welcome everybody to Wynberg Rotary. We are part of the Rotary International family, and we meet every Thursday, and this is our current meeting time. If anybody's interested in Rotary, you're welcome to ask questions at the end of the talk, and we can find a way for you to connect more with Rotary. But coming back to tonight, Rotary Toy will be our MC and introducing our guest speaker, Tanya Bothma, in a few seconds. They've set through the series of speakers. In February, we heard from Terry Winship, who's doing our Zoom tonight, and he's welcoming everybody onto this meeting or this talk. So thank you, Terry. Then Tanya, obviously this week and next month, we will have Jason van Slot, who is also a fabulous speaker. Those of you guys who like a bit more of a mountain biking, extremist kind of person, he will show you how to overcome challenges in his life with sport. But for now, it's such a lovely day, and I think I just want to introduce some of our projects in Rotary that we're doing next month. We've got an Easter project next week with St. Michael's Home, and then we've got a Arbor Day project with Square Hill Primary. So that's a few things our club is doing in the community. If you'd like to get involved in any of our projects, you're welcome to find us on Facebook or on wynbergrotary.org.za. But for not going to continue more, I will welcome you over to Andre, who will introduce Tanya Bothma.
Justin, thank you so much. But before I start, I think you're sneaking away there with something. Today is Justin's 38th birthday, if I'm correct. So Justin, a big birthday to you. I hope it's been a fantastic day. It's a beautiful day. So I think somebody up there likes you, and they've given you a really big spoil. I'm also a Rotarian, so I've got to confess that not only am I here as an MC and as the CEO of the speaking organization for which Tanya speaks, but I'm a passionate Rotarian. I haven't always been. I remember coming as a guest to Wynberg as one of the very first Rotary groups that I ever attended. I've always been well treated by the Wynberg Rotary group. And Justin and I have spent the last couple of years doing a lot of work with Interact and teaching the school kids to speak better. And so for me, it's been a wonderful privilege. Justin, thank you, buddy, for giving us this opportunity again. One of the reasons we've been doing this series of presentations is just to show people that not only Rotary is about many things. It's about doing the good things. It's about fellowship, but also there's a lot of it's about education and improving the lives of the individual members. And one of the things I hope that you do is with these presentations is that you leave this meeting today inspired and encouraged and motivated. So as I said to you, I run a company called High Impact Public Speaking. And what I do, and I'm going to say this myself before she says it, I stalked young Tanya. And if you see how pretty she is, you think, well, of course you stalked her. But the reality is that when I'm looking for potential professional speakers, I look for a few things. The first thing I look is for the ability to speak well, and she's got that in spades. But more than anything else, I'm looking for an authentic story. I'm looking for a story that is real, that will touch people, and Tanya just fitted the bill so beautifully with that. And then the last thing is that she has some call to action, that somewhere along the line in her presentation, she makes the lives of other people, or even our lives, slightly better. So I'm delighted to have Tanya here. Tanya, you're looking lovely as ever. Tanya is a remarkable young woman. Despite those young looks, she is already in her 4th decade. Can I say that? It's too late now. She's in her 4th decade. She is a wife. She's a mother. But she is also the first double lung transplant at a government hospital in Africa. And her story is absolutely phenomenal. So without taking any more wind away from her story, I want to pass over to her. If you've got any questions, please save them till the end. And what happens, we will allow for some question and answer after that. But Tanya Bothma, over to you, though.
Thank you. I am alive today because of someone else's death. My miracle is somebody else's heartbreak. I'm standing here today because somebody else's tragedy became my miracle. My family get to spend another day with me, while their family mourn another day without them. The paradox of organ donation, a gift to one, yet tremendous pain to another. I never had 3 weddings and a funeral. I had 3 miracles and a funeral. I was born 4 weeks premature and suffered a number of childhood respiratory problems, including meconium aspiration as a neonate. Now, this happens when a baby is distressed and they aspirate amniotic fluid into their lungs. Eventually, I was left with multiple severe viral infections, which left me with severe airflow limitations and chronic lung disease. I was later diagnosed with bronchiolitis obliterans, which could not be reversed by medication. I was never able to take part in any sports or activities at school, and Panorama Hospital became my second home. I was under the care of Dr. Jan van Jelen, who was a pediatrician at Panorama, and very quickly he became my pa. My school journey, all I ever did was catch up. That's all I ever did. That was my life. And when I was lucky enough to attend school, I went to school with a little nebulizer. And a nebulizer is a medical equipment. It comprises of a mask, a medication cap, which you screw onto the mask, a pipe, and a compressor. You take the liquid medication, you unscrew the medication cap to the mask, and you put this in the medication capsule. And you attach this back to the mask, and you put this mask on your face, and you inhale a very fine mist. Now, I had this amazing friend, Mandy, and Mandy would always come with me down to the secretary's office and nebulize with me. We'd sit on the floor, she'd help me set up, and we'd have a lacquer chat for 15 to 20 minutes until my lungs filled up with this medication and I could breathe again. I had this rochel 24/7 and was teased and told I sounded like Darth Vader. I was about 12 or 13 and I suffered a major attack and was unconscious for 3.5 hours and taken to Tygerberg. This is when my parents decided homeschooling would be a better option for me. I've always wanted to study psychology, and I applied at every university in Standard 9, and they all came back saying the same thing. Homeschooling 20 years back wasn't really an option. I would have to go to Hoffman House and finish my matric, which is exactly what I did. But unfortunately, my health got the better of me, and I was never able to go to university. That saying, all a child needs is love, is so true. My parents played a big role in my life. They treated my siblings, my brother and sister, the same as what they treated me. My mom, being a nursing sister, taught me from a very young age how to handle my illness. She would always say to me, Tanya, the real world out there is not going to treat you any differently just because you have an illness. Tanya, don't let your illness define you as a person. I would have an attack or I'd be sick, and Mom would say to me, Chance, go to school. And if you're not feeling well, phone me and you can come home. I would phone her and she'd say to me, but you look fine. Let's try this again tomorrow. My mother worked as a labor ward sister in Panorama. At one stage in my childhood life, I was more in hospital than at home. My parents took the decision to transfer her to the pediatric side of Panorama, that she could spend more time with me. My dad would bring my brother and sister to visit me every evening. And when the visiting hours bell rang, my mother would go fetch her things. They'd pack up and they'd go home. I remember I had this little window in my ward and I would stand there and wave goodbye with tears pouring down my face. But I knew that my brother and sister also needed a mom and dad, and that was their time with them. I was about 6 years old when I learned that I had to sleep alone in hospital. My mom was never allowed to sleep with me. She had to be a mother to my brother and sister. My dad was the more sympathetic one. I would much rather go to my dad when I was sick than I'd go to my mom. But I had the perfect balance. And I would not have been the fighter that I am today if it weren't for my parents. I will be forever grateful for everything that they have done for me. There was no stone unturned when it came to my illness. Like I said, I had 3 miracles. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever find a man. That saying, al kapot, het sy deksel, is so true. Like I said, I was always catching up with homework. And in my matric year, I went to fetch, I think it was Afrikaans homework, and I pulled into the driveway with my dad to a friend's house. And there, on top of the balcony, stood this gorgeous guy, tall, dark, and handsome. And I still looked at Ilka and said to her, "You didn't tell me you had a brother." And she looked at me and said, "Tanya, that's not my brother. That is my cousin." And the very next day, Skulk called and asked me out on a date. I put the phone down and I went running down the passage to my parents. And I said, "This guy has just phoned me and asked me out on a date. He didn't look at my breathing. He didn't even hear my breathing. He asked me out on a date." I used to go see a lot of psychologists. My breathing was a major problem in my life. And finally, there was somebody that looked at me and didn't tease me about my breathing. We got married in 2002, and Skulk has been there through thick and thin. What a wonderful man he is. Miracle number 2 was the birth of our beautiful baby girl, Tanya. Instead of decorating a nursery or choosing cots, I spent the last 7 weeks of my pregnancy in hospital on oxygen. Daniela was born 2 months premature and spent 3 weeks in ICU. It was probably one of the toughest times of my life, Skulk's life, and baby Daniela's life. Yet, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Daniela was tiny. She weighed 1.9 kilograms. And if you can see at the picture, they've taken a cotton bud and they've tried to compare the size of the cotton bud. She was really tiny. In 2017, tragedy struck our family. And my incredible brother Mark was killed in a power paragliding accident. He was 36 years old at the time, and I've missed him every single day since then. My family has experienced the sadness, yet the miracle that comes along with being an organ donor. My brother moved up to Joburg in 2015. He was my best friend. He was my everything. He would fly down for every special occasion, be it birthday, Mother's Day. If I was lying in hospital, he'd surprise me and come down on a Friday afternoon and walk in the ward. And then he'd fly back again on a Sunday. We decorated his whole flat via WhatsApp. He would ping me until I answered him. "Tanya, I'm standing in front of this coffee table. Am I buying it?" Or, "Tanya, I love this cutlery. Am I buying it?" I got the phone call on a Sunday at about 5 o'clock. My brother's best friend told me that Marky had been in an accident. I didn't quite understand what he meant by Mark was in an accident. I said to him, "Is Marky okay? Is the car okay? Has anybody else been injured?" "Tons, you don't understand. your brother and his friends went flying. Now, they never went flying on their own. They always went flying in a group. And this group did the flying together. They did the course together, which is an intense 1.5 year course. Then you get your license to fly, and then only can you go and fly. So he knew what he was doing. They said he was flying, and they saw that something was wrong. They communicated with him via radio. Like I know my brother, he communicated back and said, everything's fine, guys. I've got this. He pulled at this string, he pulled at that string. What they didn't know at the time was that his frame had snapped and he spiraled out of control and hit the ground. Miracle number 3, the call came through. My doctor said, Tanya, are you ready? We have lungs for you. I was the first double lung transplant recipient in a state hospital in Africa. I had a 14% lung capacity at the time. What was so amazing about this call was there was the same day and time that I received the call that my brother had passed. How was that for coincidence? I then knew right away that my brother, my guardian angel, would be with me. And I knew everything was going to be okay. Dr. Calagaro said to me, Tanya, you have 2 hours to pack. Your donor is on a ventilator and we'll be operating on the Monday morning. I put the phone down and I immediately phoned my parents. My mom, being a nursing sister, was never really happy with the idea of a double lung transplant. She knew the complications that came along with it. I told them they needed to calm down and get to me within an hour. We needed to go through to Grooteskier together. The next thing was the hardest thing Skalk and I have ever had to do. We took Daniela aside and sat her down, and she was 9 at the time, and told her Uncle Greg had found Mommy lungs. She looked at me and said, Mommy, are you going to die? I could not tell my child I was not going to die. I only had a 50% chance of surviving. And I looked at her and I said, Daniela, just like your Uncle Mark is in your heart, Mommy will always be in your heart. We got to the hospital 2 hours later. Dr. Greg Calagaro and Dr. Tim Pennell sat my family down and Daniela and explained the whole procedure, what they were going to do with me the next day. I don't want to lie to you, but I think I saw my family for 10 minutes before I was wheeled into theatre the next day, Monday morning. My family sat in that coffee shop all day from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. that day. Daniela would not leave Skalk alone, or my parents, or Skalk's mom. Skalk's mom came down from Mossel Bay that Monday immediately when she heard. All they did all day was entertain Daniela. But the doctors were amazing. They came every hour and updated my family. The one lung had been inserted. The other lung had been inserted. The heart had been attached to the lung. All Daniela wanted to do before she went home was to see her mommy. And the doctor said to them that there was no way they were going to be allowed into ICU after my big operation. It's one of the biggest operations out there. Dr. Greg Calagaro made a suggestion that they sit on the little chairs outside of ICU, and he made sure that I was wheeled past him, that they could just have a glimpse. Daniela looked at Skalk and said, Daddy, Mommy doesn't look so good, but she's breathing. We can go home now. I woke up on the Thursday morning, 4 days later. And there are a few things that I can remember. I remember Daniela looking down at me and saying, Mommy, I missed your blue eyes. The pain, I cannot describe the pain to you. The rochel, I lay there and listened. Had this rochel that had affected me for 38 years disappeared. And I started crying and thanked the Lord when there was just silence. For the first time in 38 years, I felt normal. I looked at Dr. Greg Kilagara and I said, please don't take my oxygen away from me. And he looked at me and he said, Tanya, you have new lungs now. Now you need to learn to breathe with those new lungs. For 38 years, I've been breathing from my upper respiratory. I didn't know what it was like to breathe from my diaphragm. It took me probably 6 months to learn to breathe from my diaphragm. For 3 months, I suffered. I was out of breath all the time. Dr. Greg Calagaro came to me later that afternoon. He said to me, Tanya, you've lost a lot of weight. We need to put a feeding tube down your nose into your stomach. I still thought, I'm in so much pain. Do you really have to do this now? I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't move anything. I lay there. They call the operation or the surgery a clamshell incision. They cut you from under your one arm right through to your other arm. They break your sternum and they lift you up like a bonnet. And they work in the square. They take the one lung out and then they take the other lung out and they insert the one lung at a time. And then they put the heart, they attach the heart to the lungs again. They put you on an ECMO machine. Now, an ECMO machine is something that does the work of your heart and your lungs. So it's a pipe that goes into your biggest artery or vein, either your neck or your groin, and it pumps the blood out of your system into this machine. And this machine oxygenates your blood. So you're basically a corpse lying there. The next minute, Dr. Greg Calagaro came to me and said, okay, Tans, now we need to get you moving. I thought, this guy must be mad. I've just gone through them putting a pipe down my throat, gagging, tears pouring down my face. I couldn't even hold my chest. And now I need to start moving. Tanya, you must understand that a lung transplant and a heart, liver, and kidney is totally different. A lung transplant is an open organ. A heart, liver, and kidney are closed organs. So the minute you start breathing, you are breathing in germs. So they have to get you moving as soon as possible. You cannot afford to get pneumonia. The physio came and brought the walker to the side of my bed that afternoon and said, Tanya, all you have to do is sit on the side of this bed and walk to that door. And I thought, okay, the door's not too far off. I can do this. I can do this. It took me a very long time to get to that door. But the physio helped me. She held my hands and she held my body and she made sure I walked. And when I got to the door of ICU, it was visiting hours. And there my family stood and they just burst out crying. I was alive and I was standing. The medication, you are on a lot of medication. You take 27 pills in the morning and 27 pills at night. My body had to get used to all these tablets. I vomited for 2 weeks solid. I had a tingling sensation around my lips. My teeth were so sensitive. I had a metallic taste in my mouth. I couldn't face tea, coffee, chocolates. I lost my hair in patches. I looked like a chipmunk from all the cortisone. I had this terrible tack shake. I still have a bit of a shake, but not as bad as what I had in hospital. I have headaches. Those are just a few side effects from the medication. I suffered a heart flutter. I suffered fungal infection. I suffered a clot in my left lung and rejection. No, not rejection as in your crush rejected you. Organ rejection. It's the worst thing that we as a transplant patient ever want to hear. We don't want to hear rejection. We can go into rejection at any point. A double lung transplant is only considered successful after 5 years. We actually just lost 2 patients last year and 1 2 weeks ago. And yesterday I found out that somebody also very close in our little lung group has got rejection. The care I got at Rotary was out of this world. From the minute I walked in until I walked out, I was wowed. The professors, the doctors, the staff, and the sisters, they treat you like family. It's not a job to them. It's so much more. They love you. They treat you with so much kindness and care. They're like Energizer bunnies. I have my doctor on WhatsApp and I can contact him at any time and he'll never get cross with me. Dr. Greg Calagara and Dr. Tim Pennell are also my heroes. I am alive today because of them as well. I have my little family because of them. We go for blood tests every 3 to 4 weeks for the rest of our lives. Because your levels are not right, you can go either into rejection or toxicity. I can't thank my organ donor enough. I am standing here today because of this amazing woman. She has given me the best gift ever, life. We're not allowed to know anything about our organ donor, but after a year, you were asked to write a thank you letter to the organ donor family. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. How do I say thank you to them for losing a loved one? And yeah, I'm standing because of that person. And the only reason I could do this was because I knew what they went through with my brother. Just by Mark donating tissue, he helped up to 26 people's lives. I live life, I exercise, and I enjoy every moment with my beautiful family. And I do this in honor of my hero, my organ donor. So what am I doing today? I'm doing 2 things. I am creating awareness around organ and tissue donation. You can save up to 7 people's lives by just being an organ donor. And you can help up to 50 people by just giving tissue. Now, when I talk about tissue, I mean skin, cornea, bones, heart valves, tendons. I implore you, register today as an organ donor and be the hero in another family's life. And I don't mean just register. Tell your loved ones. Make it known to your loved ones how you feel about it. Because at the end of the day, the doctors are going to contact you. Whether your family is registered or not, you have the final say. Secondly, I raise funds for the Rotary lung transplant unit. Why do I do this? Before we get put onto the active transplant list, we have to go see a social worker or a psychologist. I went to go see a social worker, and they ask you a lot of questions. And one of the things that they ask you is, what is your support group like at home? When I was lying in ICU, and I saw Daniela for the first time, and I saw those big brown eyes, and that innocent little voice, and those little hands barely touching mine, I knew I had to fight even harder. And when I saw my parents looking down at me, and they'd only lost their son 5 months prior, I knew I needed to fight. And when I saw Skulk and his mom looking down at me, With that love in their eyes, I knew I needed to fight. So if I can get it right, just to get a family member down here, to support a loved one while they're going through this huge operation and fighting for their life in ICU, then I've done my bit. My bigger dream is to help the doctors make this unit a bigger unit. Get enough funding for another machine, another pulmonologist, and another surgeon, because there's only one pulmonologist and one surgeon at the moment. And save more lives, help them save more lives, because not to be able to breathe is the worst thing ever. I'm breathing now, and I want everybody else out there that's suffering to experience what I'm experiencing. I'm able to watch my little girl grow up because of these amazing doctors at Rotary, because of this amazing unit. So why can I not give others the same opportunity? I thank God every day for everything I have. Life is all about tests and trials. Trials make you a better person, a kinder person, a stronger person. Embrace each and every breath that you take. Do not die before your death. Celebrate your life. Live your life fully. I'd like to share a very special quote with you by Nick Vujicic. If you can't get a miracle, be a miracle.